Well, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Makes Sense podcast. You can follow us on Facebook at Makes Sense Podcast. Follow us on Twitter as well. And I'm Kevin Olenek. You can follow me at Kevin Kevole. Hello, Suzanne.
Hi, I'm Suzanne, one half of the Make Sense podcast. We're very happy to have a guest here. You can follow me on Twitter at Suzanne is on air.
Yes. And just a reminder, Suzanne is our favorite Arizonian.
That's right. That's right.
Our guest is a award-winning, fair to say, did an award-winning documentary called Are You Listening from a number of years ago that spoke about mental health. It was able to get it impact to schools and conferences and companies. And she's now has another project about listening in a mental health workshop that is out tomorrow morning or Thursday morning at 9:30 to be part of the Bell Let's Talk mental health conversation. It is Wanda Reinhold. Hello, Wanda. How are you?
Hi
there. Good. Okay. Good. I'm hoping you're not frozen. Do we see each other? Yeah, I see her.
I seem to be freezing up a bit here. Not sure why.
Sometimes it helps to shut off the Wi-Fi on other devices that you're not working. So if you can spare to turn off the Wi-Fi on your phone, I notice that can speed it up a little bit on your computer.
Okay, let me just do that. Hang on.
Yep.
Good idea. Okay, it's off.
Okay. Let's see. All right, there we go. And then on my end, I'll just do that. So kind of before we get, as we begin here, as we are in the Bell Let's Talk season, it's mental health. Bell Let's Talk, it's Mental Health Day, a time where we all grab together and talk about mental health. Instead of doing this from basically acting like posh experts of mental health, that's we're not, and looking at this from a 40,000 point of view, I think sometimes you got to travel through the dirt road in the alley and just kind of talk about where we're at. It's been a tough year, I think, on a lot of us, and I think I feel it would be very appropriate to kind of just start with a sense of honesty and kind of where we are at. So, Suzanne, I'll let you start, and then Wanda will go, and then I can share as well.
Exactly. We're not coming at this necessarily from experts. I mean, Wanda is much closer to that as she is. She's an expert on mental health issues. But we're looking at this from a point of empathy. Empathy is where you are, you've experienced terrible things yourself, so you can relate to other people's difficult stories, and you can kind of share those stories together. And through that, we become stronger and better human beings. This episode comes on the heels of some very difficult personal life experiences for me, and I am glad that I had the spoons and the space to be here, and I did it. And I'm glad that I'm here, because if I can't speak to you guys when I'm in the thick of those issues, then what good is it? If you're listening to 3 perfectly happy people discuss mental health, it may not be of use to anybody who's really struggling right now. So we can speak to you, the listener, who's struggling right now, as people who are suffering ourselves.
So how are you doing?
I'll be okay. I'm past the point where I feel like I need to extinguish these difficult emotions of my grandfather's passing and a vindictive uncle who wrote us out of the will and the obituary, my immediate family and I. And that was really tough, reading the obituary where we were completely erased. It was adding insult to injury. And I no longer feel like I have to extinguish those feelings with weed or junk food or marijuana. I'm at the point where I can see the light at the end of the tunnel and realize that I will get past this. I look forward to the day that I can look at this from 40,000 feet. But right now, I'm in the dirt, and that's okay.
Wanda, how are you doing?
Um, so my husband and I were not able to have children or adopt, and there's various reasons for that, health as well as some very small things in my husband's background that are not something to be concerned about, but he's just not allowed by the government, unfortunately, to adopt. So yeah, so he went away for a couple weeks for work, and I didn't realize how much the isolation, the COVID thing, was affecting me until he was gone. And even though I'm really good at connecting with my friends on Zoom, I'm really good at connecting with people on the phone, and I always have been really good at connecting. I started to feel the extrovert side of me started to really feel the isolation. I started to really feel it. And, it took me a few days to really get my head back and to be grounded and centered. It is just so important for us, for me. I'll speak for me to connect person to person with people. And even though I'm seeing people by Zoom, even though I'm hearing people by phone, that's not taking the place of being in the same room with someone, feeling their energy, feeling their warmth, feeling their love, getting a hug, that kind of thing. And so I really, I was really surprised how that impacted me, and how very much I was missing. I'm an ambivert, and what that means is I am both introverted and extroverted. So the extroverted side of me was like crying out for that extroverted connection. And so now, like today, this morning again, I was, just feeling that sense of, man, I want to go somewhere. I was somewhere yesterday, but it's just, I'm really hungry for that. I'm really hungry for the regularness of it, So yeah, it is a discipline every day for me to put my feet on the ground and to just be grounded and centered and ready for the day, and to shift from worrying about the connection thing to remembering that I'm okay. That is like a discipline that I am practicing much more regularly, much more intentionally than I ever have before. And it's just really an interesting time for me. And my awareness around how people who are in homes or in, not able to get out at all, like my mom, for example, I'm really feeling that. I'm really feeling sad for people who are not allowed to connect, right? Or not able to connect. That's people in the hospital, my heart is really starting to empathize with that a lot more, because I'm seeing, how much it's impacted me, how much more these people who cannot go out at all are being affected. So my heart has grown 6 sizes this last couple of weeks. The story of how the Grinch stole Christmas. Well, yeah, my heart has grown to understand that this is a major deal. This connection, this need for connection, this mental health is really at risk if we continue this. Really at risk.
Thank you for sharing that story, Wanda. I think so many people are experiencing exactly what you are as we speak. And oftentimes that pain, we don't feel it in real time. It comes later. oftentimes when you're somebody who's aware, when you're an artistic type, you're in film, you're a very empathetic and highly sensitive person, and that's what makes you so good at this. But the downside to that is you absorb this negative energy, and sometimes you're absorbing it and you don't even realize it. And it's not until that stress comes that the sponge is squeezed, and then all that negativity can come out unexpectedly, and suddenly you're just feeling this ocean of pain. And it's good that you at least recognize that, and we appreciate your sharing that.
Thank
Kevin,
you.
I'm just going to be a stickler English teacher right now. Susie, English teacher, is coming out. Can
Well,
we
thank-
change this banner to where we are instead of where we are at?
Well, thank you.
We don't need that.
Thank you. I need the police to come in and give a polite correction. That's, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's two levels for me. I guess for the first, like when this first all started, it was it felt a little bit like jail, even though we weren't in jail. We couldn't we couldn't go to school. We were in the middle of at the time we were in the middle of a huge assignment that I probably would have done much better had I been able to walk back and forth to school. And then getting back into the rhythm of actually heading to the campus of school. And that is one thing I have been extremely grateful that I've had the opportunity to do. It sucks that we don't have in-person class. I wish we could see everybody and we could all visit and that, but it's just not is. But the fact that I'm able to get to class and do stuff that is not at my house has been a huge difference for me. And I have noticed that difference of me heading outside and able to go out and do something as opposed to me being hermited in. It's a very, very different person. And it's been great that I've been able to do podcasts and all that and have that connection, but you're right, Juan, it's not the same. This isn't the same. And I think that that's really important to recognize, as it's fueled a lot of other ways to find social interaction. And as an example, going on Twitter and doing a term that was termed doom scrolling, and just sort of recognizing those habits and recognizing that. So I've been grateful to get out. The other big struggle, and I think you guys, Suzanne, you sort of touched on this, but doing the news has allowed me, I have to get into the information on what is actually going on. And that part, to stay positive, is really tough. When you're reading information, you're hearing news of, as an example of oh, the average is down. This is the lowest since December 30th. You have a little bit of hope. Oh yeah, but the vaccines there's a delay for a week. And then we have a new variant, and sort of being immersed in the news part of this is very tough mentally.
This is an IV drip of misery. To ask formally a deeply depressed and suicidal person to report the news amidst the political situation as an American and this crisis, this epidemic, it's putting a recovering alcoholic in a bar, asking us to report all this information and take it in. And it doesn't not affect you. You don't step out of the studio and forget everything that you've just reported. It's still sinking in, like ink that gets on your skin and slowly steeps in throughout the day. And suddenly you find yourself really on edge. You're more annoyed with strangers in public. As empathetic people, as me as a recovering depressed person, I have to go to great lengths to shake off whatever I've been reporting on in the news. Through the gym, a walk in the woods, hugging my husband really tightly, whatever it may be, that energy has to go somewhere.
Yeah. And the fact that you can't be near people is it's tough.
Makes it that much harder.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess overall, I guess I would say I'm coping the best that I can, and that's, it's one of those things. If I guess if I stop, I may just, if I go through the 40,000 feet in the air, when I look back on this, I probably will recognize some good and some bad, but I feel like I'm just having to plow through, almost in a sense of, I don't want to say it is what it is, but it is what it is.
To where you'll just deal with it later.
Yeah.
Do you have an outlet, like a creative outlet, or somewhere where that energy can kind of go?
I think the podcasts and help. I think writing helps. I think doing what I'm doing is my creative avenue. So I guess that's the outlet that I'm expressing it through. And if I didn't have it, I think this would be very different.
It's got to go somewhere. When a possum, when it's about to be hit by a car and it flips on its side, or it's about to be attacked, even if it isn't injured or killed, it will kind of shake its legs quickly. And that's because all of that pent up energy has to go somewhere. And then it gets up and then it goes about its business. And that's exactly what we need to do. If we are taking in all this information as news reporters, as people in the media, if we don't have the outlet, we're just a hen sitting on its egg of stress. Wanda, what are some of your outlets? How do you kind of shake off that negative energy that you're absorbing?
I keep moving forward in all my goals. I have several goals for business, several for personal, family, marriage. I just keep moving forward. I don't listen to the news that much. I'm informed, but I'm not engrossed in it, because you're absolutely right. I do take on that energy. I feel so much so quickly that if I listen too long, I'm just absorbed. Like, it can be a matter of 10 minutes and I'm absorbed. So I just really watch that. I have conversations when I'm feeling anything that is, negative. I have conversations with mentors. I do that. I'm a writer. I'm a director. And so writing and I'm writing a comedy right now. That has been amazing. It's just been really good because I'm writing a comedy in the midst of COVID. It's awesome. I recommend it, actually. It's really been really good for me. So yeah, just moving forward and doing stuff and having a regular routine.
Routine is just a pillar of mental health, isn't it?
Totally, yeah. Like, I have not stopped my routine. My routine has actually gotten even better during this time. So yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Did you, like, I don't know, for both of you, maybe a question I would ask is, how easy or how did you adjust, especially Wanda, you were talking about staying informed but not absorbed. How did you get to that, and how did you get back to that, to your routine? How easy was it? Because at first, of course, we didn't know what we were getting into, so we all just kind of went, hide,
right,
lock door, yeah.
Right. Well, one of the major things that happened last year when, so I came back from Australia, New Zealand with my family, went on my mom's dream trip. And during that time when we were away, we discovered that my mom probably had Alzheimer's. And so then when we came back, we went right into helping her with doctor's appointments and getting her assessed. And then we went into moving her. So basically what I did was I focused on my mom last year. I focused on her and making sure she was safe. She was living part-time with us, and then I would live part-time with her where she lives, 2 hours away. And we would just go back and forth like that. And in between, I was somehow doing business. I don't know how I did it, but I just did. Just kept moving forward and making sure that we were moving forward with her and getting her to a safe place. Moved her. My brother even had surgery. He couldn't move any boxes. We somehow, well, we just figured it out. You know, I was the muscle. I became the muscle. He became the organizer person, you know, and we just did it, and we got her moved safely, and she's doing very well in the facility, and the facility has had no COVID at all. So she's very safe, and that's great. So once I got through that, and that was complete in October, I also filmed a film in August in the midst of it all. So like I say, I just kept moving forward with things. You know, it was chaos. It was just total chaos. But I learned, you know, went to a course, learned everything to do for cast and crew as producer, made sure we were all safe and organized that all. Just did it, you know, yeah. And then once we got, you know, closer to 2021 here, then, you know, it was more, okay, what do I need to do for myself? You know, just came to that place where I'm like, yeah, I'm tired. I'm really tired. I think I need to take some time for me. So I did. I just took some time off and just rested, really rested, slept lots. And then came to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to engage again. So yeah, that's basically my journey. Does that answer your question?
Yep. It does to me anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and it did beautifully. It's so good that you realized that you needed that time off, because so many of us just bulldoze. And if you bulldoze, that stress will affect your body, because it's the mind and the body, it's all one system, and you cannot separate them. You are taking on an enormous amount of mental stress. And I think that if you plow through and you don't take that time off, it starts to affect you physically and mentally. And it's good that you realized you needed that break.
Yeah, thank you. I think a big part of it too is my prayer life. You know, I'm very intentional about that every day. So I'm just giving it over, right? And then I'm able to rest and relax a lot more. I'm not carrying it. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but when I don't do that, when I don't give it over, then it's much more of a trial. It's much more heavy. It's much more like, it's just, prayer is not for God. Prayer is for me, so that I hear myself giving it to him and just releasing it, you know. And whether you believe in God or whether you believe in a high power or whatever, I think that is just such an important thing to do, is just to give it. And again, prayer is talking. So I was talking about earlier, you know, when we're listening to another and we're allowing each other to talk, it's the same thing with God or the higher power, or whatever you believe. When you talk it out and pray it out, it releases, just puts a hole in that balloon and lets it out, lets the steam out. And suddenly it doesn't feel like you're carrying it anymore. It's out there in the universe somewhere. So, yeah, I really believe in the power of meditation and prayer. So that has been a big part. And, you know, whether I do 5 minutes or do an hour, it's so important, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can only carry rocks in a bag for so long. Like they'll eventually crumple you over, or you have to let it go. Like it's just, yeah. Yeah. And it's that centering piece that this is going to sound cornery. It's that centering piece that brings peace.
Yeah.
Right. That it just, yeah. And it's not about like, I guess, yeah, just for me, it's not about coming like a thunderbolt in the sky. It's about just getting some peace and perspective. It is hard
Mhm.
to it's hard to get that from my end anyway.
It's an excellent grounding exercise. And I think for a viewer who's not as religious, there are so many other ways to view it. I think for you, as you explained, Wanda, prayer is taking that burden, relieving yourself of that burden, and just releasing it.
Mhm.
And for me, as a non-religious person who does not pray, sometimes I meditate, but I don't really pray.
Mhm.
Putting those feelings into art is basically a prayer for me.
Mhm.
Writing or drawing a picture, expressing myself creatively, I feel like that's a form of prayer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Getting it out somehow, right?
Yeah.
Getting it out somehow, expressing it somehow. Expression is like everything. It's just
Yeah.
everything. Because when we hold it in, and we don't let it out in any way, it affects us. It has to go somewhere. It has to go somewhere. So where does it go? It goes to our health. It goes to our relationships. It goes, right? Like it starts to affect everything about us and in our lives. So yeah, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want it to affect everything. I'm not saying that it hasn't affected everything some days. It has. However, it's less likely if I express it however I express it. Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
I'm just curious, Wanda, when you were going through all of that with your mother and dealing with all this and making a movie, where did you notice physical symptoms when you were under that stress? Because for me, it's always formed like in tension, headaches, and pain in my neck. And I wonder where that is for you. Just curious.
In my gut.
In your gut.
Yeah, for me, I feel everything there. And also in my chest. Yeah, so I know that I am in need of that expression and that prayer when I feel that. I know that I've gotten too busy. I know that I have gotten too wrapped up in doing and have forgotten to be for a bit, right? When that happens. And it starts in the pit of my stomach and then it comes up into my chest. And then if I do not pay attention to it, then anxiety starts to rise. And then I stop breathing very well. And then from there, it goes to attacks, right? So, yeah. And sometimes that happens actually really fast. So,
and that's your body
yeah.
speaking to you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And there were a few times this past year where that happened. In fact, I remember one time I was sitting in the living room with my hubby and I was like I wasn't paying attention to my body. We were just sitting and watching something on TV, I think. And all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. It just was there like that. And to be honest with you, I got scared. I thought I was having a heart attack. And I said to John, you have to take me to the hospital. So he did, because we just wanted to check it out and make sure. And in women, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon how you want to look at it, I guess, sometimes the anxiety can look like and feel like a heart attack. So it's different for men, but in women, it can have similar feelings and symptoms. So it was good to go and get it checked out, and there was nothing wrong. It was absolutely anxiety. But yeah, I had been actually pushing it down. Like when I took a look at it, like another thing I do is gratitude journals. I do gratitude every day just to focus on what went well. And my husband and I just started this week. We started how did I help you today? And what was fun today? Just
Yeah.
sharing that really briefly at the end of each day so that we're focused on the good stuff. And I actually, when I went to the hospital and I was sitting waiting for some help, I started to think about, so what is it? What is the reason I'm sitting here? And I realized that I had not been doing my gratitude journal for a few days. And when I went back to look at my gratitude journal, a number of days had gone by and I had not done it. So that tells me a lot, right? That when I'm not focused on what is good, because there is always good, always. When I'm not focused on it and I'm focused on everything else, it really has an impact on my mind, my body, my heart. It just does.
Yeah.
I think we have to give ourselves a bit more credit. It's so easy to focus on the negative because negative information is profitable in our media. If it bleeds, it leads. And even if you're not paying much attention to the news, people are talking about the headlines all around you in line at the cafe. And our brains are naturally wired to perceive negative information first. Because think about it, when we were in the caveman days, if you missed a beautiful patch of berries, you were fine. But if you missed that tiger coming at you, you could die and your village could die. So our brains are naturally wired to pick up the negative information first. And then we're in this media stew, this sludge, this toxic sludge of negative information everywhere. So we have to take it upon ourselves to practice gratitude and positive thinking every single day. Not where we're dancing in euphoria and rainbows all day long, but just enough to relieve ourselves of all that negativity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. It's really important to do that, to see sort of, to find that positive stuff, to find that gratefulness. I started kind of just focusing on 3 things I've been grateful for just a couple weeks ago. And it's good, but it's also, I find it hard because it's like, it takes time. The other, but I just, before we move on here, I guess here's the other question, and I think comes out for me, and Chu, I think it's really important to be positive, but I also think it's really important to be honest. And I think part of the messaging that has been out there, and God love Dr. Bonnie Henry, God love Dr. Nina Hinshaw in Alberta, and all of these medical officers that have been coming forward and having to give this message over and over and over again about, we're in this together, stick to this, all of that. I mean, especially with Dr. Henry, I have noticed that she's been emotionally exhausted at some points, very emotionally exhausted. I know a couple of journalists have had the courage to just ask how her mental health is doing. And I wonder if sometimes we force ourselves, we're sort of encouraging everyone to be positive, when I think it's important to also just be honest. We're not there today. I can't find my gratitude. I'm really sorry.
I think that's an exceptional insight. I really do. I mean, yeah, because it's not all roses, and it's definitely, and that's why I say I am not perfect at this. When I forget, or when I push something aside, like gratitude or whatever, it is a slog. It's a slog, because my brain is like is so tired. My heart is so tired. And so, yeah, it takes some work. It takes some dedication to get back online. And it's important, yeah, to be honest. I absolutely, for sure. Yeah. At the same time, I know that I can lead my brain and my heart and use my mouth and say, yes, that's happening, but it still doesn't negate the fact that that is happening over there and it's good, right? That is still good, even if I'm feeling crappy.
Right. There's a
Right?
lot of ugly, but there's a lot of beauty out there.
Yeah.
And Kevin, I love that you mentioned honesty and the importance of that, of emotional honesty, when so much of our culture is engineered against honesty. Look at social media and Instagram. When you're looking at somebody's Instagram, that is not somebody's life. That is their highlight reel. And we look at it and we compare and we think that if we're not dizzyingly euphoric every day and we don't have this beautiful poster card lifestyle, that we're somehow failing or not doing something right. When the fact is, most of your life is just kind of meh. There are terrible moments and then there are beautiful moments. And when it's terrible, we need to be courageous enough to say that we're feeling terrible, because that's the only way we can reach out to people and make them feel normal. We need to realize. Yeah, go ahead, Wanda.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay.
But I was just going to say, the honest posts that I have seen from some of my connections are some of the posts that are most popular. And it's not the posts that are full of positivity. It's the posts where people are like, they're both positive and honest at the same time, right? They're saying, man, today was a slog. And I had this that was happening. It was very challenging. And I had this that was happening that was really good. And I don't know how I feel right now. Right? Like, it's both. It's both.
And these are the posts that we need. These are the posts that people need. Hawaii photos are a dime a dozen. We've seen them all. But those brutally, emotionally honest posts are the ones that truly change lives and change the world.
Absolutely. This is a great segue, Kevin. I mean, this is your deal. So, Kevin and Suzanne, but this is a great segue into the conference, just so you know.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the conference.
So it's all about that. It's all about being honest and coming together, and the whole idea about National Hope Movement is that mental health is created in community. And the way that it's created in community is by connecting and being real with one another. So that's all that tomorrow is about. It is about coming together. So we're going to be live on Facebook first, so that the whole world can come to the table for the introduction. And then we're going to go after that into incubator groups. People are going to be invited to go into incubator groups. And they're smaller groups on Zoom. And we'll be going to these groups. And I believe it's on Zoom. If not, anyway, there'll be a link that is sent to people. And basically, we're going to have conversations. We're just going to connect with where we're at. Just be there for one another, around a table, so to speak, and talk about, how we're doing, what's going on, and what is at the forefront of our minds and hearts, and just listen and support one another. And then after the incubator, then what's happening is workshops, so people can choose out of a number of workshops. You can see all the information on nationalhopemovement.com. You can register for the conference, and you can register for the workshops as well there. You can go to the workshop and, learn something specific. And mine is one of the workshops, and we are learning about the true healer. And I really believe this. The true healer is just listening. And that's my story. My story is all about people who listen to me, God who listened to me. I listened to myself. Listening healed my life. I actually probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that.
So this is the website is right here.
Yep. If you go to the conference, so that's the movement. If you go to the conference link, that's where you find the registration. Yeah, there you go. 14 hours left. There we go.
Fun fact: I went to high school with Connie Jacob. So.
Oh, fun! Cool.
Yeah. So.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
So we can put this link up on our Twitter page ASAP.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'll just add that here as I stop the share, and I'll just do that here. And there we go. We can just put it there like that. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really important. Yeah. I think I agree. I think it is just listening. And if I can just, I think it's one of the other things that has been much easier and grateful for is the men that have started to speak into the mental health movement. The Corey Hirsches, the Kelly Rudies. I'm thinking hockey, but I know that there's a bunch more. But just allowing men to speak, to have that and say that it's okay not to be okay, because there has been a precondition for us to feel to not express about our mental health, and it's really important to have that venue. And I think it's given me permission to be more open about my mental health and more aware personally of my mental health. And I think that's really important as well.
A lot of boys a lot of boys and young men, I think, are shamed by their fathers. It starts young. And even to this day, I hear like really young kids with millennial dads, shaming their sons for crying and showing their negative emotions. Anger is the only acceptable negative emotion still. And this really needs to be nipped in the bud.
Yeah.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm excited to be a part of the National Hope Movement because of that. We have speakers. Oh yeah, when we come together first in the morning, there's going to be on Facebook Live. There's going to be speakers, and those speakers are men and women, including the gentleman from the show. Oh my goodness. Why is the show not coming to mind? You know who I mean?
That actor who did that thing?
That actor who did that thing, yeah. Oh, CBC show. In the store.
Kim's Convenience.
Yes, thank you.
Andrew
is going to be there, yeah. So
Andrew Fung, I believe. Yes.
He's going to be one of the speakers tomorrow. And, lots of different people from all over Canada are going to be speaking, including Nunavut. So it's going to be fantastic. Yeah. And there's, all ages, which is going to be really great. All ages, teens, all the way up to seniors. It's going to be really great. Yeah.
So I'm just going to pop here just to make sure that people see this. I'm going to make sure here I've got this, and just to make sure we got this. These are kind of the team workplace. Join us. The main conference is 8:30 to 9:30 Pacific, 9:30 to 11 to 1:30, 11:30 to 3:30 Eastern time. So that's when this runs in. A suggested donation between $10 to $30. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's great. Do we a couple of other, maybe we'll just we went on some really honest topics here. I do want to touch on a couple of quick things here, if we can, just before we move forward here. The impact of the economy and mental health, especially now. Lots of job loss, lots of job uncertainty, lots of businesses closing, and in one sense, and in the other sense, there's been a painfully obvious awareness of the wage gap between the haves and the haves not. Especially, Suzanne, you were looking at that from the downtown east side's perspective here in Vancouver.
We have to look at. We can't look at mental health, and we can't get serious about extending these resources to everyone in the community if we can't discuss wealth gaps and inequality. Vancouver is kind of a poster child city for wealth inequality. We see that. We see $1 million condos a block away from serious homelessness and addiction, particularly on the downtown east side. And if we stop viewing addiction as a moral failing and bad decision making, and we look at it in the context of poverty, and people who live in poverty have limited access to mental health resources and oftentimes turn to substances to deal with that because they cannot afford therapy, or they're not surrounded by supportive people. They're oftentimes raised by people who were abused themselves, and these addicts or people who are facing addiction oftentimes were victims of abuse themselves. And it's this cycle of poverty. And when we start to offer these mental health resources to everybody, including people who can't pay for $100 an hour psychologists and rehab programs, then we can truly talk about giving mental health and giving access to mental health to everyone. And that was just something I wanted to touch on briefly. There's a lot to learn, but I think a really good resource for our viewers is In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts by Dr. Gabor Mate, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, and we'll definitely put a link to that on social media as well.
Is that a book, Suzanne?
It is, yeah. It's a book, and it's a wonderful book, and of course there are interviews about it that you can YouTube for free.
Cool.
In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts.
And what is it about? Can I ask?
It's about the cycle of addiction and how trauma influences addiction, particularly on the downtown east side.
Okay. So it's specifically about Vancouver?
It is. It's written by a doctor who treated people on the downtown east side. Brilliant Canadian doctor.
Neat. Cool.
Wanda, you're living in Alberta. The economy has been on a downturn for a long time. We won't get into the political aspect of it, but it's been a struggle for a really long time. And now to add this into it, how, like, from your end, what are you seeing in terms of economy and the Alberta economy and how that's affecting mental health?
I just heard yesterday that there are some restaurant owners now, for example. Now, restaurants, I don't know if you know this, but restaurants are some of the most difficult businesses to run. There's lots of overhead. There's lots of details, lots of inventory, all of that kind of thing. You've got your staff, right? So there are restaurant owners that are seriously struggling, like wondering how they're going to keep going personally, even. I heard yesterday of this one woman who is an owner who is wondering how she's going to feed her son because she's trying to keep her staff, she's trying to keep her restaurant, but of course the money is just not coming in like it was, and it's going out faster than she can, right? So it's it is a real slog for them. And she talked about how mentally so tired she is, and how mentally so overwhelmed she is. And she's losing sleep. She's not getting sleep. And of course, we all know what happens. Most people know what happens when we don't get sleep. Sleep is like so central to our health. Yeah, she's just worried. She's just worried, so worried about it. And so if that's her existence, right? If that's her daily, I mean, I don't know this person personally. I just heard an interview of her, but if that's her existence, and if that is the experience of many business owners who are restricted at this time from serving the people that they usually serve, you can imagine, things like road rage, things like battering or abuse are going up. I heard a statistic that domestic abuse is going crazy in Alberta right now. Yeah. So, there are some really very concerning things going on. And, there's more restrictions coming in place. I heard the rumor, I don't know if that's going to happen, but restaurant owners are actually getting together. I heard this. They're getting together and deciding whether they're going to obey the laws or not. Right? Like there's discussions going on like that. And I'm not saying they're going to follow through with that, but that's how serious it is, because they don't want to lose their businesses. They don't want to lose their restaurants. They don't want to lose their livelihoods. They don't want to give it up, but they're at the point where they need to make a decision. Like, that's how serious it is, right? For some of them, it's just, yeah, they can't go much longer.
Yeah, it's tough. I even here, I know there's some restaurants here struggling too. It's yeah, that's absolutely tough. This has all been inspired by Bell Let's Talk, and I think I wanted to talk a little bit about. It's really easy at this point to criticize some of them. I know that there's a lot of people that are very negative towards what this campaign is. They look at it as a corporate driver. They look at it as a moneymaker for Bell and all of that. And I want to leave that there. Because I think the fact of the matter is they opened a door for a conversation that I think has been hard to have. And I just thought, how has this helped?
From my perspective, it's really helped with awareness. I think part of the negativity comes from the what Hope National Movement is all about. It's not just good to have awareness. We need to do something, right? And so that Let's Talk is all about talking, but are we actually doing something, right? Are we actually helping one another? That's the question, right? That has come about. But I think Bell has done a tremendous job, honestly, at putting mental health much more at the forefront of people's minds. Whether they agree with it or not, people are still thinking about it, and everywhere I go, people are aware that it's Bell Let's Talk month, right? So Bell Let's Talk week, so I think the awareness is really, at its highest that it's ever been, which is great. And there's also movement in terms of action now. We've talked a lot, And I am seeing much more action. Like, we're actually doing something about it. We're creating opportunities for support. So that has been really encouraging. That's my perspective.
Suzanne?
I think that if we could possibly see a silver lining to this pandemic, it's that it's finally pushed us in that direction to make a better world for everybody, because we're all hurting in some way, economically, emotionally, mentally, in so many ways. Professionally, we're hurting as parents, as spouses, as students. And so we can all see that in one another, and that's pushing us to make some real changes. We're flooring the gas in that direction, in a direction that we were already headed. I think social media destigmatized a lot of mental health issues because everybody was talking about everything all the time. And social media is kind of a Pandora's box. It's everything and anything. It's as strong as its users. There's a lot of terrible content, but there's a lot of excellent content that makes people feel less alone in the world. And this pandemic, in the age of social media, kind of brought us all together. It's been quite the cultural crucible, and I do see that positive aspect.
All right, yeah. I guess for me too. I think it's opened up. Yeah, it's opened up an honesty and an awareness for everybody. And I reflect back to a point that everyone made here before. Suzanne talked about how Instagram is fluffy and rainbows sometimes, but that power of that honesty, I think, has just released. It's given people permission to feel honest, and just feel a bit more genuine,
and feel a little less alone.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to touch on is I'll fix that, but we'll still talk about that because I already see Suzanne screaming.
Screaming? I'm not screaming.
Not screaming, but like the grammar and the teacher police in you is like, you got to fix that.
Oh no, we're good.
Oh, wait, okay. Sorry, I was trying to be funny there, and it wasn't. There's talk there's going to be a federal election in the spring. There's other elections that will come up. How do we put mental health in the election, making it more of an election issue? Like there's always going to be the staples. The economy is always going to be part of an election issue. Healthcare, which is interesting because healthcare is an election issue, but we don't seem to put mental health care into the election issue. How do we encourage this to be more of an election issue and more of a topic that we talk around campaign times? Yeah, go ahead.
By speaking their language, by framing it the way a politician would. Mental health issues are a huge drain on our medical system. And it is prevention and awareness. And a pound of prevention is worth an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And if we are dedicated to awareness and bringing people together and offering resources to people who are just on the cusp, seeing the first signs of mental illness, then we can prevent the big emergencies, the suicide attempts, suicide, severe self-harm, substance abuse, and all of the terrible, the fallout and the ripple effects of mental illness. Ultimately, it saves them money to look at it from that very cynical perspective.
Yeah, it does. I think we have to collaborate. I really do. I think we have to bring forward ways that we can work together to look at this issue. I think we need to have action steps that are doable. I think we need to create opportunities together with the leaders of government that actually do help people. Yeah, it has to be a collaboration. You know what? If my mental health isn't good, it's going to affect everybody around me. It affects everyone. And it's not just my mental health, it's your mental health. It's my husband's mental health, right? So we have to look at it that way. We affect one another so much based upon what comes out of our mouth and what's in our minds. I mean, it's all here, right? Like if our minds are not right, it's our lives do not work. Like, and it comes out in horrible ways in society. We have to take this seriously, and we have to work together, petitioning our politicians, but not just asking them, but putting forward real solutions. This is what I'm talking about. It's not just about talking about it anymore. We have to do something. We have to be something. And so, you know, creating listening communities like I have with my company. So people watch my films and then they're invited to be a part of a listening community for support. Doing stuff like that. I'm not saying that that is the solution for everything. I'm just saying we have to do things that people can get their heads around and that are easy to implement. There's got to be solutions. This is what Hope Movement is about, the National Hope Movement. It's about creating solutions, and one of those solutions is connection, coming together, and being honest with one another. So, yeah, we have to collaborate. If we try to go at this alone, it's not going to work. So, and it can't be what my film, Are You Listening, was done after the community that we based the story on. The community had 6 suicides in 6 months in the schools in this community. It rocked the community, totally flattened the community. It was an awful time. And once that happened, then the government decided, okay, there must be an issue. So they created a program called the Empathy Program and created an empathy program within the schools in that community. And the empathy program was about one-on-one connections between the students in the schools. They had a buddy, and they taught them how to talk to one another and listen to one another. When that program went into the schools, the suicide rate went down to nothing. It was gone. There was very little mental health. I mean, there still was, of course, mental health support, but they didn't have the issues like they had before. As soon as the government changed and they took out that program, guess what happened? Suicide rate went up. Mental health issues went up right away. We have to continue. The program, they said, was too expensive to continue. Like, what is the reason that we're taking out a program that is helping people so much? So, yeah,
There's
that's
always
what I'm talking about.
Thank you so much for your insights and sharing your experiences, Wanda. There's always that firing back, that who's going to pay for this? This is too expensive. This is unnecessary. As soon as somebody says that, all you have to do is explain to them how expensive mental illness is and the massive drain that it can be on our system. And once you speak their language and use that data and you use those statistics, seeing that it costs the system billions each year, then they start to pay attention. And it's unfortunate. We shouldn't have to use numbers. Experiences, basic human stories should be enough to get people to invest themselves in this and to devote themselves to these issues. But when someone asks you or they challenge you by saying how expensive that is, turn right back and explain to them how expensive it is to keep a mentally ill society going.
It's a great point. Yeah. Argue dollars for dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dollars for dollars. Poverty is expensive. Mental health is expensive.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else we want to touch on before we?
Oh my goodness, I could talk all day about this. So, yeah. But yes.
All right. Well, let's look. Here's the conference website again. It starts at 9:30 in the morning on Thursday, Pacific Mountain Time. So we'll upload this, and you have 4 hours. This is the website. And if you just want to talk or connect with them that way. What other ways can they connect, Wanda?
Yeah, so, if you want to be a part of the listening community for my films, you can go to my website, and there's information there of how to connect with us and watch our films. We have Reinhold Productions. My company is all about mental wellness. So anything that we do is to help people with mental wellness, and that can be a comedy, that can be a drama, that can be documentary, whatever we're doing. It's all about helping people with their wellness mentally. So, yeah, reinholdproductions.ca.
Okay. All right, I'll put that
Thank
there.
you, Wanda.
Thank you so much, Wanda, for joining us today. And thanks everyone for listening. We will be back again, listening and watching. We'll be back again for another episode coming up here really soon. And we will talk to you all then. Or unless, Suzanne, did you have anything to add before we go?
A quick apologies. A few times I had to turn around the screen and I was fiddling with my headphones, so I'm sorry if that was distracting. I hope that didn't take away from what was going on here in the episode.
Oh, it's really, really great. Thank you so much for inviting me on, and it's good to know you're doing this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wanda.
And we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.